Welcome to Your Personal Power Pod, a podcast about aligning yourself with the life you want. And here are your hosts, Sandy Abel and Shannon Young.
Shannon, another beautiful day in the neighborhood. How are you?
I'm really well. I'm just really enjoying us.
Yes, we're having fun.
Today we're talking about talents, strengths, and weaknesses. One of our strengths, I'm very lucky to say, is that we just enjoy each other as a family, and we're dorky and silly and affectionate and loving, and it's gross and it's beautiful.
Not gross.
I'm sure to some people it is. So anyway, we're starting off this podcast feeling very sweet towards each other this morning.
And towards our listeners.
Of course. Always.
So like Shannon says, today we're talking about your talents, strengths, and weaknesses. Each one of us comes into this world with a unique set of talents, strengths, and weaknesses. Your talents are the natural capacities you were born with to behave, think, feel, create in a certain way, and they enable you to perform well in specific areas. But when you work to develop these, then they become your strengths. And weaknesses, we all know about, are things that don't come naturally to you and that you might have to work on to improve. The combination of your talents, strengths, and weaknesses shape who you are and how you interact with the world and the paths you choose in life.
And you always have the power to turn your talents into strengths and use them to achieve your goals. And then you can use those talents and strengths to overcome your weaknesses. And I firmly believe if you're working with your weaknesses, you can turn them into strengths.
Definitely. Many successful people have done just that.
So you don't have to be afraid of them. You just have to acknowledge them and then learn how to work with them.
Yeah. Remember that your weaknesses do not define you. They are just a part of the unique, amazing human being that you are.
Unless you allow them to.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can allow them to. And there are people I know who choose that.
To let their weaknesses define them.
Mm-hmm.
People do that. I think that they're maybe raised in a family where that was what was focused on and that was how they were described and told who they were. And it never occurred to them that maybe there's a whole other part of them and that they can work with these and change them.
Mm-hmm. Change your story. Change what you're focusing on.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about examples of talents and strengths.
If you're born with the talent to be creative or artistic or musical, you hear about 3-year-olds who can play Bach and Beethoven, and that is obviously a talent they were born with. But there are others, like you might be good with words or speak well and communicate well. This is when I'm not as great with math and numbers. That's a talent that some people, I know your dad is really great with that stuff. He can do all that in his head. Oh my goodness. And your grandmother, she's 90 something and she can balance her checkbook in her head.
Sharp as a tack.
Sharp as a tack. It's just phenomenal. So that is definitely one of her talents she was born with.
Then there are some other characteristics that maybe you wouldn't necessarily label as talents or strengths right out of the gate. And that's the ability to be compassionate or gentle or kind, versatile or disciplined or loyal. Those kinds of things that we just kind of attribute to somebody's personality. Those are actually really incredible strengths.
Exactly. And the ability to be proactive and optimistic and positive. Oh my goodness, that makes a huge difference in everything you do.
And everybody around you.
Yeah. And then if you're honest and reliable and trustworthy or dedicated, there are so many strengths.
Exactly. And they can affect all areas of your life, not the least of which is your business or career or working life. It might make sense to you that if you're really good with numbers, you might go into engineering or architecture or one of those careers that are really math and numbers focused. But if you're just dedicated and reliable and compassionate, where do those apply? And that comes into what they call quote unquote soft skills, skills that make you a really good employee that we all want in the people who work for us or the people we work with, but that aren't necessarily given a whole lot of space on a resume.
Right. So what are some examples of soft skills?
Being compassionate, being disciplined, being honest, being self-aware, being really good with people.
Exactly. And if you get an employee who has all those things, oh my goodness, that is a quality human being that will do well for your company, whatever your company is.
Mm-hmm. And if they're maybe not great with numbers, they can learn.
Sure.
They might have to work at it, but those are talents, abilities that should not be dismissed or undermined because they're really powerful.
And for like optimistic and persistent, if you are those things, you'll be able to address, tackle, and overcome your weaknesses, which is really great. Plus, you'll be able to see where you want to go. Your persistence will help you move ahead, and your optimism will help you believe that you're going to succeed. Amazing soft skills.
Mm-hmm. And if you're creative, you're more likely to come up with new ideas and solutions to problems. And then if you're a hard worker, you're more likely to be able to achieve your goals, get over those problems, no matter how difficult they seem.
Exactly. And there are so many other examples of strengths and how they can impact your life.
Like you're one of those people who just by virtue of being you, people will tell you anything. And it's because they trust you, because you're trustworthy.
Oh, thank you.
And you're not judgmental.
That's true. I am trustworthy and I'm not judgmental. But when I was young, I did not have that skill.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I didn't understand how to interact with people. And that's why, as we've talked about before, I used to be bullied and all that stuff because I tried too hard and it didn't work. I learned over the years who people are in general, just human beings. We all have certain things we want. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be respected. We want to be treated kindly. And it took me a while to learn that, probably because I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can talk to anybody about anything, and it just blows me away what people will tell me because because I really care about them as a person, and I see them and I really hear them. I respect who they are. And you're right, I don't judge. That was not a talent I was born with. It was a strength that I had to cultivate and learn.
Interesting.
What about you?
I can talk to anybody about anything, meaning I can have a conversation with anybody about anything, but I think I'm too eager to talk to people, and I think it scares them away. They're not as likely to tell me things like they tell you.
Well, you're very enthusiastic.
I'm very enthusiastic, and it turns a lot of people off.
Well, but it's wonderful. You're positive and fun.
I don't know. My other talents and strengths, this is a hard one. And I think it is for a lot of us because we are just who we are. And it's really hard to see yourself objectively. If you don't know what your strengths and weaknesses are, I would suggest you do what I'm about to do, which is ask somebody. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, my goodness. You're smart. You're persistent. You're really caring. You lead with your heart, which sometimes gets you hurt, but it's a beautiful part of who you are.
Thank you.
You are willing to tackle new things. You're intrepid. You don't let things stop you. If you set out to do something, you do it, and you will march through whatever to get there. Plus, of course, you're reliable and responsible and honest and loving and caring and all those fun things. And you're talented. You can sing and you can dance.
Thank you.
You want me to go on?
No, I'm good. I've had my fill for the day. Thank you. My cup is full. But some of those things are things that, like, I just am and do naturally. I think a lot of us feel this way. It's hard to see who you are clearly. And so if you don't know how to identify your talents and strengths, aside from asking somebody, where else can you look to get those things clarified?
Start with just looking at what's easy and fun for you to do. Are you just a natural athlete? Do you love to throw that ball or hit that tennis ball or swing that bat or whatever, or swim or hike or ride your bike? Or, is that fun for you? For some of us, it's a chore. But for other people, that's their happy place. Mm-hmm. And you need to know, my phrase is, what makes your heart sing? What is really good for you? And also look at where you feel fulfilled and where you just enjoy spending your time. Are there certain people you like? Are there certain areas you like? Do you like the desert? Do you like the mountains? Just figure out who you are. Mm-hmm. And then think about your school or your work or your hobbies where you've been successful. And look at what it took for you to be successful in those areas.
And be honest with yourself.
Yes.
practice self-awareness and be objective when you're looking at what makes you happy. Because it can be really easy to judge yourself and should all over yourself and say, well, I shouldn't like doing that, or making excuses. And you got to get over that. If you're ever going to move forward and grow as a person, you're going to have to learn to look at yourself clearly.
Exactly. It's okay to not be good at everything.
You can't be good at everything. It's not possible.
I don't know anybody that's good at everything. Some people beat themselves up because they're not. They say, well, I'm not perfect. Well, I don't believe in perfect. There is no such thing. I think we're all perfect in our own way. You're the perfect you. Perfect according to somebody's definition. No, not possible. Can't do that.
I think the perfection comes into choosing to continue to work at it. That's perfection.
That's persistence.
Yeah, but it's also where the perfection comes in. You don't have control ultimately over how good you are at something, but you do have control on how often you work at it.
That's true. So you can get better.
So let's talk about weaknesses.
Well, we've kind of touched all over that, but weaknesses are the traits that are negative and not well developed that can actually have a significant impact on your life if you let them define you.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you're shy, you may have difficulty making friends or speaking up in meetings. If you are easily distracted, you may have trouble staying focused on tasks. If you're impatient, you might find it difficult to work with others or wait for things to happen. There are so many different kinds of weaknesses.
Tell me some of your weaknesses.
Oh my goodness. Well, the big one is I am not really good with details.
Mm-hmm.
Especially numbers and that kind of stuff. I don't like heights.
Is that a weakness?
I don't know if that's a weakness or not, but I mean, I will follow your dad to the ends of the earth, except if he climbs a mountain. And then I'm going to
all at sea level.
stay at the bottom and wave. You know? I'll go partially way up, but I mean, for some reason, heights just terrify me. I think it's a weakness because it gets in the way sometimes, but it's not one I really choose to overcome.
Right. I mean, and that's, I think, key too. We all have weaknesses, and which ones are worth working on. If your career was as a mountain climber, you might want to get over being afraid of heights.
Yes, I would have a problem with that,
But as an author, therapist, counselor, podcaster, that's probably not key in your world.
Exactly. Yes, I don't need to go to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, so I'm good. It's all fine. What about you? What are some of your weaknesses?
Well, in life, I'm impatient. I'm very impatient, and I've discovered that it's because I like to move at a certain speed. And at work, I like to move at a certain speed. It gets me in trouble. I miss details. I misspell words. I don't necessarily give things the time or the thought. If I'm just like given free rein and do things the way I would do things if there were no consequences, then it can get me in trouble moving at that speed. So what I consciously have to do is tell myself all day, every day, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down.
And do you slow down then?
Yes. It's hard. I physically feel it. Like it's holding me back.
Yeah.
But I'm very aware of it. And I have another coworker who I think likes to move at the same speed I do. And together we remind each other, we need to slow down. We need to slow down.
Oh, that's good to have a support system. And when you're working with your weaknesses, it's important to have a support system.
It is. And to not take things super personally. Sometimes that's all constructive criticism is saying, hey, here's a weakness that is affecting your job performance. Like you might want to work on this.
Yeah, right. And you've got to be able to hear that.
Right. And not being able to hear that is a weakness. So work on it. So some examples of weaknesses include insecurity.
Yeah. Or just poorly developed skills. Some people jump into something being optimistic about it, which is great, but they haven't done what they need to do first. And depends on what you're jumping into. It could be a problem to your life and health. I mean, like climbing a mountain. If you jump into climbing a huge mountain and haven't trained and done what you needed, it could be very dangerous. Some people are really introverted and shy and not comfortable around other people.
And some people are negative, pessimistic.
Yeah.
And I am not sure necessarily if there's just one place where that comes from, but I do know that if you get stuck in that kind of pattern of thinking, your life trajectory kind of starts going downhill instead of uphill. And if you want that, great. But if you don't, that's definitely a weakness to pay attention to.
Yes, because you can turn that around. You can start finding the joy, as we've talked about, finding the positive, and that will no longer be a weakness. Pessimism and negativity and expecting the worst, I call it the struggle suffer philosophy, will get you exactly what you're expecting, which is lots of negative and unhappiness and things never working out.
Being obsessive or overly detail-oriented can get you stuck really quickly.
Exactly.
Being sensitive or insecure can make it really hard to move forward.
It's hard to have relationships if you are
Yes.
overly sensitive and afraid to reach out and interact with people.
And be vulnerable.
Exactly. You have to choose the right people to be vulnerable with.
Absolutely.
But once you do, it's important to not be sensitive and insecure, just be real. Another weakness a lot of people have, unfortunately, is a lack of compassion or awareness of others. That can really be harmful to you and to everybody else if you're one of those folks, because then you'll be overly critical. Basically, you have no self-awareness.
Gee, that sounds like a fun person to hang out with.
Yeah. Fortunately, we can set boundaries and choose who we want in our lives. I choose to not have those people who are critical and have no self-awareness, just want to control. But those are weaknesses. They can change if they want to.
Yeah, it doesn't mean if you have any of these that you're a horrible person. It just means you have areas that you can develop, that you can work on, that you can change if you want to.
Exactly. Like weaknesses are often seen as your obstacles or your limitations, which they are if they go unchecked, but they play a crucial role in your personal development, and they're areas where you can improve. You can grow and adapt and evolve. When you acknowledge and embrace your weaknesses, then you have the opportunity to utilize your strengths and talents for growth and self-discovery and creating the life you want. And it's so exciting.
And if you want to learn more about that, check out our episode on the shadow. All those parts of you that you don't want to look at or acknowledge, you kind of have to if you want to become self-actualized.
And to be able to overcome your weaknesses.
So how do you identify your weaknesses? Aside from being very clear about the parts of your life that aren't working well and the role you play in that.
Well, look at where you want to improve. Decide what you want to do about that and write down your goals.
Ask for help.
Absolutely. Get a mentor or a support system, or just tell somebody, I'm going to be working on this and I would like you to check in with me now and then to see how I'm going so I stay on track. And that's what coaching is, really. We figure out where you want to go and we create an action plan on how to get there. And then I walk with you. Your coach walks with you as you move ahead with your action plan to achieve your goals. So if you want to overcome your strengths and weaknesses, find somebody to be your advocate.
Somebody gentle.
And supportive, but not too gentle.
Right, because you need to have someone who holds you accountable.
Exactly, but in a nice way.
Which is also a skill. You can learn to hold yourself accountable, which is hugely powerful.
Exactly.
But you can also learn that, and that's another way to overcome weaknesses, is to just get yourself some more education.
And then get feedback like a coach will give you or a good friend will give you. Acknowledge and celebrate the small steps. And be adaptable and persistent. Sometimes you'll try something and it won't work the way you hoped it would. And you don't just throw up your hands and give up. You go, oh, well, darn. The History Channel has a whole lot of really interesting shows on how all kinds of amazing things that we take for granted now were created. It always amazes me how these people back at the turn of the century would come up with a great idea and try to implement it. And it didn't fly. Nobody liked it. And instead of going, oh, well, I guess there's no need for this, they would say, oh, well, okay. What didn't they like about it? What can I do with this? And they would recreate it and they would move ahead. That's how we've gotten so many amazing inventions and foods and all kinds of things, is because people didn't stop. They didn't say, oh, well, I'll never get this. They moved ahead.
And they were open to constructive criticism, which we also talked about recently, which is, we like to say, constructive feedback.
Right.
Which is like, why do you like this? Why don't you like this? What about this appeals to you? What should I run with?
And you have to be willing to hear things that aren't really fun. But when you do that, then you'll be able to take that information and move ahead. So you've got to be positive and embrace a growth mindset and learn from your failures.
Yes. Failure is not a thing to be afraid of, even though American society tells us we should be. I read a book not too long ago I believe, called The Geography of Bliss.
Ooh,
Super cool book that
interesting.
sought to find the happiest country. And ultimately, I can't remember which country it was, Finland, Iceland, one of those.
Yes.
It was because their culture doesn't have the same stigma around failure that American society seems to have. Their whole mindset is around exploring and growing and trying new things. And failure is welcomed because it means you are attempting something.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
So welcome new challenges.
Exactly. And if you have a weakness and you want to improve on it for whatever reason, welcome that. Say, wow, this is a great growth opportunity.
Yeah, nobody ever got anywhere in life without failing, because failing means you tried.
Well, and you learn. Like
You
the
learned.
people on the History Channel, they learned from every failure. And they said, oh, well, that one didn't work. What about it wasn't right? Okay, I'm going to change that and I'm going to shift to this. And then they did it again and again and again. And finally, we ended up with a phenomenal invention or whatever that we all use and love. And even though it's hard sometimes to acknowledge your weaknesses because you think they might define you, it's important to remember that everybody has weaknesses and they are not who you are. They're just part of the amazing person you are. And once you acknowledge them, you can turn them into strengths.
Just undeveloped opportunities.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. I like that. So I hope that all our listeners will look at their strengths and their weaknesses and their talents and see how to put those all together to create the lives they want, because you always have the power to do that.
Yeah, get to know yourself. Embrace the good, the talents and the strengths, but also embrace the weaknesses, because that's where your growth and your self-discovery will occur working with those. Remember, nobody's ever done. Like, we're all a work in progress until the day we're not here.
Right.
So it's your unique blend of strengths and weaknesses and how you work with them that makes you the amazing person you are.
And love yourself in the process. If you have the courage to step up and say, you know, I'm not really good at that and I want to be, I'm going to go find somebody to help me, tutor me, teach me, whatever. Good for you. That's amazing. Love yourself for that and appreciate yourself. Don't berate yourself because you're not good at something.
Remember that you are incredible and powerful and just solid opportunity. Always. Thanks, Sandy.
And thank you, Shannon. And thanks to our listeners. This is such fun. We really enjoy sharing our thoughts and lives with you, and we hope that you're having fun with it too.
Yes, and we love it when you share your thoughts and lives with us too. You can do that, or you can suggest topics for future episodes, which is really helpful because ultimately this is a collaboration. So speak up. And if you want to review our podcast, you can do that too. And you can do all of it through yourpersonalpowerpod.com. You can just click contact and drop us an email and we'll talk to you directly, which is really fun. Also, you can visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel and share that with your friends and family so they can join in the conversation also. And if you want to learn about coaching and how it can change your life really quickly, actually, contact Sandy at sandy@insidejobscoach.com and get started moving forward. We look forward to hearing from you. And until next time, find your power and change your life.